Okay, this is part two of the my quote tracker basic trading platform that I use when I do trade during the day as a day trader. I know the video is hard to sometimes see with the blue background, but I've been trying other ways to really get it across. I've been given some suggestions, and I'll be working with that. But for right now, I'm going to stick with the blue background, and hopefully everyone could see it clearer enough. If not, please email me, and I will definitely attempt to fix it the next time. This is another great indicator. Like, first of all, I've been talking about, people have been actually, one of my most frequent email was, how do I pick the stocks that I trade? Well, all right, we're going to get into that probably in the next video. But another email that I get a lot is, how do I pick the spots to get in to the stocks that I find? Like, when do you get in? So one of the indicators I use for that, if I do place a trade during the day, normally when I do find these positions, I like them so much, and they're actually very reliable that I usually put my alert limit. I put my alerts on my quote tracker for the breakout, usually of the trend or the neckline of the inverted head and shoulders, and I usually take a half a position right when that trend line is broken through. And then if I see strength coming into the market and overall trend is good and the overall market is good, then I'll continue to add to those positions, because that's usually a 1 or 2, 3, 4 day run in that stock. So I always take my first step into the ice cold waters of a new stock. I usually don't jump right in. I usually take a half a position and then I'll add to that. But if I am adding to that position and that stock is actually trading, and I know it's eventually going to go up, and I want to actually try to get a pullback on it, what I'll use is the pivot points. Now, pivot points are an indicator that's widely used among traders. So because it's an indicator widely used, it's very reliable. Or it's reliable more than a lot of other indicators that I found. So I trade using the pivot points, and usually on certain stocks they're more reliable than others. So as you begin to use them, you'll find the stocks that they are reliable on. If you have pivot points on all your charts that you have up on your screen, and you see the ones that are bouncing off certain points, off of pivot points and resistant lines, then you see that these stocks normally use these pivot points. So you can come back to them and trade them. I'll give you an example right now with Google. On Google on Friday, it opened up, and the pivot point. Well, first let me tell you, the pivot point is usually calculated. Now there's different types of pivot points, but the standard pivot point is usually calculated using the previous day's low, the high, the low, and the closing price of the previous, I should say, period, because it could be pivot points for any period. But I usually go daily, so I use the daily. And I don't usually do the calculations themselves. A lot of charting programs, especially Quote Tracker, already has a calculation, so all you have to do is click on the indicator and it's placed on your charts for each chart. So I just go by their calculations, and it's dead on, as you can see. The pivot point is the main one, and the rule is if the stock trades under the pivot point is used as a resistance. Or it's usually a bearish sign. If it goes above, if the stock trades above, right, like right here at 10 o'clock, if it trades above the pivot point, then the pivot point becomes resistance. Now in Google at 10 o'clock, remember we were trading below it, so it was used as a resistance. So now, finally we bounced off of it, broke through it. Right when we break through it, it automatically becomes support. So we came back support. So now if I'm deciding to make a trade, I won't try to trade a stock unless it's around a pivot point or a point of support. So it could actually be a combination of a trend line and a pivot point, like right here would be a great point. And this is the point where I said, all right, 625 would probably be a good point to get in Google. And actually, it was a good spot, because 625 was a point where the pivot point was, and there was a rising trend line. So it actually held support right there, had the trend line, and continued up. And and then we came right up to resistance number 1, which is actually, I group these in as, I might call these pivot points in general, even though there's one pivot point, and then you have resistance 1, resistance 2, support 1, and support 1 and support 2. But I group them as pivots. And so we go up to support number 1, resistance number 1, and you see we bang right into it, and we don't get any further above it. So Google, the pivot points work really good on, and I have these on my trades. I use these on all my charts, and if I'm looking for a position to get into, especially a chart that I really like, I'll use the pivot points as an entry spot, combined maybe with other things to get an accurate, very accurate, read on it. All right, so let's take a look at another chart. Maybe I'm just looking here for another one, and here's the AKAM. Alchemy, which we're trading on Friday. Now again, this I haven't looked at this yet, but as you see, right at 9. Well, the pre-market starts at 8 o'clock, and the action starts getting right about around 9:30. So 9:30 market opens. It opens above the pivot point. It trades down below the pivot point. So now the pivot points becomes resistance. So now we've tried to bounce up, and you see that we're right. Why is it staying right below the pivot point there? Right here, it's right below it. Is there a reason because of this? There's a reason, because a lot of people use the pivot points, so they trade off of this. It doesn't break above that, so it sells off. Comes back down again, attempts to, and it trades right around this area. We'll go a little bit further. It can't really break through that pivot point, so it trades back down. Comes back up again, bounces off it. Finally, it breaks through, and if it breaks through, look at that. We got a nice run up off the pivot point, into the close. We're still above it, and continues higher. We never really come back. Let's see, we're coming back down a little, but we're not really come back to we never really come back to retest it. So once we break that pivot point, it becomes support, but we never really go back to retest it. So it's a good entry place to get in on a breakthrough of pivot point. And you see the volume come in right here as we broke through it, and then it's a signal for traders that this is more of a bullish trend. So more people are going to get in it, and you're going to trade off of that. So I find this a great indicator to use. I would like to back test it on a lot of other stocks on here and show you how good it is. But the video only gives me a certain amount of time, and I have so much to cover. All right. So that was for some of the emails that people asking me, how do I pick my positions to get into stocks? Normally I try, because I'm a disciplined trader, and a very disciplined trader, I try to trade stocks that I'm used to. I know a lot of people email on stocks and say, oh, check out this one and that one. And it's hard for me to jump in on those stocks because I'm not familiar with their actions. I don't know exactly how they react to the pivot point, so I don't want to just take a chance. So you see me taking small positions lots of times on newer stocks because I'm not really sure how they're going to react to the pivot points. But stocks normally, well-known stocks that are in the know, are traded with a lot of volume. Very liquid stocks trade off the pivot points very nicely. So I wanted to bring that up to you. That's also a great indicator. That's also included with the Medved quote tracker, which you could use for free, and you could use it with any usually data feed like Ameritrade, Schwab, E-Trade, IB, Interactive Brokers, even regular feeds that you could pay for. So overall great program. It helps me so much. Just discipline is the key in this game, and I want to continue having that discipline this upcoming week. Even more discipline. Discipline could be boring after a while, but the money sure is, and what you could do with it. All right, so let me continue this. This is a little video on pivot points. I hope you enjoyed it a little better. Remember, you could just do a Google search on pivot points and learn a little bit more about them. But remember, use them on stocks that are very liquid, big stocks that are in have momentum, and you'll see how they work. All right, and that's a good position to get in. All right. So any emails on this, definitely email me, and I'll talk more about it. All right.